This is the Picard podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're here to wrap up season 1 of Star Trek Picard and crown our winner of the 10 Forward pub quiz.
Woohoo!
Welcome back, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're going to wrap up Star Trek Picard Season 1, and we'll also be crowning the winner of our 10 Forward pub quiz. That is a very radio voice I have today. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Joe Lantrue, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers, and fellow pub quizzers. I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this isolating group of 3, I am Chris.
We are quite isolated this week, aren't we? Once again, I think everybody around the world sitting at home. We are luckily able to podcast because it gives us the opportunity to chat with each other and have Skype calls with a purpose.
Exactly, yes.
I am reaching out through the medium of Skype and touching your faces.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just touching the screen, which I'm going to have to wipe anyway. But I'm not touching your actual face, so it's okay.
That's good. In real life, you've never actually touched my face, which is probably a good thing. We're close, but not that close.
Yes, I'm still slightly disturbed by you touching my face, Chris.
It's just my face you're disturbed with, or me touching your face.
No, you touching my face.
Okay.
Yes.
But it is one of the great benefits that has come out of this, I think, is all of the online meetings that I've been having with just friends over the last couple of weeks. A couple of pints, a couple of bottles of wine, and sitting down with friends and chatting about TV shows and movies and the COVID virus, basically.
Yeah, we have actually been having virtual pub sessions here with friends. So it gives me that idea for a virtual pub quiz for TV Podcast Industries with booze. It's an over 18s establishment.
Yeah.
And we'll have to come up with a good pub name. I suppose in this COVID time we could call it the dry cough or the wheezy lung, maybe.
Maybe that might work. Yeah, maybe in time for our 500th episode, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. This is our 483rd episode of TV Podcast Industries. So we will be getting to our 500th episode somewhere around, we think, June. If I've got my numbers right, 10 weeks from the end of April is roughly what I've got. And the reason I know that is because that's when we're doing our coverage of Penny Dreadful City of Angels, the next show that we're going to be covering. So I think the 499th episode of TV Podcast Industries will be the last episode of Penny Dreadful City of Angels, which means we have nothing specific on our 500th episode. We don't have to interrupt a run to celebrate our 500th episode. We can do a specific 500th episode.
Well, that's it. Like, given again this global public health pandemic thing going on, then with so many of like the Disney Plus stuff being the production being cut down. So obviously, as fellow defenders as well, we had all the Disney Plus Marvel stuff that was coming on, such as WandaVision. That obviously there's Loki, there's
Falcon and
Winter Soldier. And so these things are slowly being kind of put back because the production's been put on hold for the foreseeable future. So, we will have to readjust.
Yeah. All the movies that we had planned for the summer, they're all off the schedule, obviously. These are all little things. These are all entertainment things, so it doesn't really matter. But we just don't know what our schedule is going to be after we finish Penny Dreadful City of Angels and our 500th episode. So that might be a good pause point, maybe, or we'll have something planned. Anyway.
We could do a big TV podcast pub quiz, knees up online with our fellow podders.
Yes, or industrialists, as we somehow coined them at some point over the last couple of months. Didn't we call them industrialists?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Didn't we call you guys industrialists? I think we did.
But just as a quick rumor discussion, potentially we'll also have Black Widow. Because the rumor as of yesterday, which is April 2nd, not April 1st, April 2nd, was that Disney is now evaluating whether to drop Black Widow on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because of the success of Onward they saw. They saw now that did have 2 weeks in the cinema, and then they brought it globally out on digital platforms and Disney Plus, I believe. There is discussions now, apparently, with the new Bob in Disney, and not Bob Iger, the other Bob, the second Bob.
Oh, the new CEO of
the new CEO,
right?
Apparently, this is up there now, along with himself and Kevin Feige and a few others, about would they be open to this? Because at the moment it is delayed indefinitely.
Yeah, exactly.
They have no new date.
At the end of the day, they'd be stupid not to have those discussions. It's going to be a stick to beat it with before it even comes out, though, is what would be in my head, because I can see the headlines already being written. You know, oh, there's a reason why Disney aren't trusting in this movie in the cinemas. You know, they're not going to hold it because they think they wouldn't make enough money with Black Widow, you know. Because there's haters out there who are always going to turn it to something. But hey, I just want to see it. I'm really excited about it. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I have a big enough TV, so it feels like if we sit far enough back, it feels like we're in the cinema. So that's fine.
Yeah, because there is a large discussion at the moment that actually anything that's coming out at the moment is seeing greater than average love.
Yeah.
Because you're putting it out at a time where people are clamoring for entertainment.
Yeah. And I'd be much happier if Disney did something like this. Unfortunately, there was a recent example where The Hunt, the movie that was done by Damon Lindelof, they tried to put that out digitally worldwide. In the US, it was put out on all platforms. Over in the UK and Ireland, because there's a pre-existing deal, one of the broadcasters over here, Sky, they have a pre-existing deal where they get early access to all movies. So it went only to their platform for about 2 or 3 weeks. So they tried to have this big international push for this movie to be released, and I think Invisible Man as well was one of them. Where it's only now coming out, I think, on other platforms, whereas Sky had it 2 weeks ago because of a pre-existing deal. So unfortunately, you hit into those silly deals that block something from being as successful as it could be. I know it makes a lot of money for Sky, and no doubt that's how you make your money. But luckily, Disney Plus is worldwide now, and it is absolutely massive. It's a juggernaut of a service. So if they put it on there, they're certainly going to make the money out of it. But it doesn't give them any extra money, I think. I don't know whether they have the capacity to get even more people signed up, because it seems like everybody signed up for it. So, in the regions where it's not available, there's what they'll probably do. Well, like what they do with Onward would be putting it on iTunes, putting it on Google Play Movies, YouTube TV, things like that. Exactly. But we are here to talk about Star Trek Picard for the final time this season. We don't know when season 2 will be back, but we know there is a season 2 coming. Hopefully you followed along with our 10 episode discussions. But if you're just here for the first time to listen to our overall thoughts, this is a good point to discuss our overall thoughts of Star Trek Picard. We are going to kick it off with some feedback that we received over the course of the last couple of weeks. Some people were watching the episodes a little bit later than others, so their feedback came in a little bit later. So we're going to discuss that first, but make sure you subscribe to our podcast over at tvpodcastindustries.com. If you want to let us know any of your thoughts about any of the shows we cover, or just want to get in contact with us, you can email us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com.
Yes, and of course you can subscribe to us, rate us, leave a review on any good Federation or Romulan supporting podcast player, including Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I saw a great initiative from Podchaser, this podcast service that you can listen to podcasts on and you can review and rate podcasts on. They're basically saying that if you review a podcast, they'll donate 25 cents to food delivery services in the US. I think it's a really good initiative. So, hey, rate or review us over there on Podchaser, and you can share some solidarity and charity with your fellow isolated folks.
Exactly. Maybe we should be doing the pub quiz sooner as well.
Maybe, but let's see how we go. But we first up have some spoiler-filled feedback from about season 1 as a whole. I believe first up we had some Facebook feedback from Richard Blaze, and that is obviously over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/TV Podcast Industries. Rich had this to say about episode 9. Watched this yesterday and listened to the podcast today. Totally agree with your breakdown. And for me, it was the weakest of the series, which, for me, I've thoroughly enjoyed so far. A few points. Is it possible that it's lore and not Sung they meet? For me, it fills a gap and makes me happier. If it is Sung Jr., then it just feels a bit lazy plotting, really.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, the vision problem. Firstly, the mind meld. What utter tosh and a real belittling of the Vulcan race. Secondly, the Gollum, I'm hoping and praying it's not bloody Tom Hardy with a prosthetic nose. But I'm also hoping they do something more daring with it, as they have hugely signposted that it would mean for Picard. Number 3, JL, I love you. No need, absolutely no need. Number 4, I'm still waiting for the Borg to kick ass and want them to just wake up fully and turn. Number 5, flowers, nice enough to look at, but from a practical point of view, too much faffing about. 6, 7 needs her own series with Elnor as a partner.
Yay.
7, I am fully bought into Rios and find him an interesting character which could have far more depth if allowed. Number 8, I've not really got Jurati. She just seems at times someone there to move things forward. She's a bit too disposable for my liking. Number 9, Narek. Did I miss him having his scar healed? As sure in one scene it was there and then in the next it was gone. Continuity, that is called.
Yes, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice that either.
I did. It's definitely there. Number 10, and finally, 7 needs her own series. Yes, you're saying it twice, but it's true. It's true.
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with this. It's a little thing that I've noticed over the last couple of years. Whenever a character breaks out of the TV show, everybody's looking for a spin-off, and I'm kind of going, but then you kind of hollow out the core of the main show if you keep taking all the good things about it and moving them off to their own shows. I'm really hoping that what they do in season 2 is give a big story arc to 7 and have her kind of ground a few major episodes in the series.
Definitely.
Because there's going to be another 10 episode series, hopefully. And I don't know how much more you can wring out of Picard without having other characters stepping up to the plate and getting 3 or 4 episodes themselves. I do love 7 and Elnor together. I think they're really cool.
Oh, me too.
What little we saw of them this season.
Yeah, me too.
Rich had this to say about episode 10. I enjoyed it, but it was all wrapped up a bit too quick and with a positive vibe. Personally, I would have liked a darker ending to set up season 2. Stay safe, people. Rich. Thank you very much, Rich, for all that great feedback. A couple of points I think we all want to kind of discuss some of your 11 amazing points. Mm-hmm. So, John, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Richard, for that. Completely agree with you on 7. Not necessarily needing her own series, but certainly being with Elnor as her partner. I really have enjoyed Elnor. I think he's the new Huey for me because obviously poor Hugh got killed. But
spoilers.
Yeah, I really felt that Elnor kind of really developed being with 7 of 9. I really like that coupling together and kind of being this kick-ass team for sure. I thought that was really good. And I'm the same with you. I think Rios really grew on me, to be honest. And I really warmed to him and really got to like the character of Rios by episode 8, episode 9. I thought that was a really interesting character, and I'm glad he's there now. I just wasn't really very sure when we first met him. I wasn't really sure how he was playing into it, but in the end, I've really enjoyed that evolution of the character. And as I say, he grew on me, really.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to introduce the character, isn't it? Because you actually don't get to know Rios, the character himself, at all in those first couple of episodes that he's in, because he's kind of hiding behind all of the holograms. So you get to kind of like the actor who's playing Cristobal Rios, but you don't get to know the character at all until he has his final breakdown and tells Raffi what he did and what Starfleet made him do and wipe his past and lie about the history of what happened to his captain, you know? I think that was a really good breakdown moment, and it's really interesting trying to separate the actor from the character, I suppose, and kind of not introducing his own personality until later in the season, even though you've seen him on screen multiple times early on. And it's a really interesting way to introduce the character. One thing I will say, Richard, just looking back on your feedback, especially you're talking about episode 9, there are so many options of how this season could have ended, based on how you've seen episode 9, you know, so many things that they could have done in the final episode that a lot they just avoided, you know. We mentioned very early on in the season that having a Borg cube and these returned XBs, I suppose, seemed like something that should be a very central point to the show. And they seem to have kind of swerved from it at the end and not really utilized them in any way that we thought they were going to. There's loads of warnings that something bad was going to happen. These Borg are going to awaken and do something, and then it didn't happen in the end. So
yeah, and I think that comes, Richard, to your point about the darker ending. I think there was 2 big pieces that were underutilized in the series. One is the Borg, which could really have darkened episode 10 and indeed episode 9. And I think that connection, you know, the treatment of the great threat here, these AI higher synths, and, you know, in some ways connected with the Borg, you know, this idea of robots and then cyborgs and then these, you know, uber AI, synthetics, almost synthetic biologicals in a sense, if that's not an impossible thing to say. But I think, you know, that evolution, and that somehow the Borg would connect in with this, higher, this higher, AI synthetic. And I think both of those were underutilized. I mean, I do think in hindsight, a few sort of mechanical tentacles coming out of a wormhole just doesn't cut this huge threat to organics in the galaxy, dare I say it, in the universe.
There's a really good theory that I've seen this week, actually, that we kind of missed, and it's possibly because we didn't podcast about Star Trek Discovery. We should kind of guess that there was a connection here. Control from Discovery, I think you mentioned it at one point, Chris, which was a synthetic group, effectively a collective, that were trying to kill all organics in Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
Control is dealt with at the end of season 2 of Discovery, yeah. I think. They will form a part of season 3, I presume, and this could be a connection to Control in Picard's timeline, effectively, that they may have evolved a bit further somehow, or re-evolved somehow, that these tentacles could be connected to Control. So it's an interesting theory. I didn't put it together, and I feel like it might be setting up something in Discovery. I think I mentioned when we talked about episode 10, I certainly would have liked the idea of having some more information so you could say definitively this is supposed to be connected to something I saw over on the other show on CBS.
But I mean, the thing is, even though that's a theory, it's better than nothing. And it's better than what we got, which, to be honest, with all the setup of it through the Chad Fash and all that, which I really, really enjoyed, it was kind of like popping the balloon and seeing it slowly deflate, to be honest. And so, yeah, I think definitely those 2 things would have made the ending a lot darker, and maybe have added even more to what happens with Picard, which, dare I say it, to your point around the Golem, I think, you know, I said it on episode 10, I thought that was a great, bold move from the show, for sure.
I'm with all of you. I didn't podcast on episode 9, but for me it was the weakest of all of them. For truly where I am with this, should have ended with a bang, but it ended with a whimper.
Okay.
Like, in that, I've kind of collected my thoughts in the week since we've recorded. And I'll be brutally honest, I've also gone out and looked for some critical reviews of the season as well. And by critical, I don't mean that they're overtly trying to just be negative on it. I mean a proper critical review of the writing and the storyline and the connection and direction and things like that. And everyone is around the same, which is, it was a good first outing, but something's amiss. Yeah. There's too many dropped lines dropped threads, storylines, I should say. Yeah. These guys are like the Voldemort. But actually, you're leading it up and you're hyping them up and you're hyping them up for a whole season. And everything is revolving around that. And then they get, what? Let's say 3 minutes of screen time. Of those 3 minutes, it's like 30 seconds. 3 minutes of them coming out of the wormhole.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Genuinely, I was trying to work out who you meant were the big bad, Chris, and that's not to do with what you were saying. I think the show isn't very clear about who is the big bad because they throw so many new ideas into the mix throughout season 1, you know, Shatvash and the synths on Mars, and then the synthetics on this planet, Tal Shiar once again coming back. The Romulans overall are technically still a villain here. Is the Borg coming back? Could they be the big villain? That by the end of it, you kind of go, oh, a higher power of synthetics, which is introduced in episode 9. There's this other higher power of a collective of synthetics that's going to come in and kill us all, and you see them for 3 seconds and they're gone out of the screen. So that's what I mean. I'm not sure whether I understand that there was a big bad we were aiming towards. Yeah. And I don't want to go back on what I said about episode 10, because I'm actually very satisfied with the show ending in a very Star Trek Picard way, with Picard talking everybody down and saying, hang on a second, just because you have your missiles aimed at another planet to start an international war doesn't mean you have to do it. You still have a choice to stop it before it happens, and we can look for a peaceful solution, because that's the way I wanted this series to end. I didn't want a massive battle at the end. There's tons of other sci-fi shows for that. This felt like the right ending for the show, but I think we've all had a quick chat about this, and I've thought about it over the course of the week as well, like you, Chris. Something happened with this series at the end. Yep. Something happened with those last 2 episodes. Either they were unhappy with the final resolution. CBS, the people that produced the show, either they were unhappy with the final resolution of what was happening and told them to go out and rewrite it, and they had to take out massive plot details, or they thought they'd have a 2-hour finale for the show, and they just started editing out massive sections of the show, because there are, as you mentioned, loads of dropped story threads, loads of things that could have come back. Yeah. Maybe it was a budget thing. Maybe the renewal for season 2 meant they couldn't definitively end season 1 with Picard dying and him going off and finishing the show that way, which is maybe the way they wanted to originally do it. But everybody's happy to come back for season 2, so they have to rewrite things for that. But yeah, so many threads just disappeared. And as we mentioned, what happened to Narek? He seemed to be quite a central character. And the last thing you see of him is being held by 2 security guards. And that's the end of his storyline, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think for episode 9, for me, what was evident was there was an issue with the writing. And it really jumped out at me because the writing up till then felt so certain, so secure in itself in terms of what it was aiming to do. And then episode 9, for me, there were just some drop points. And I think you spot them really very clearly with characters. So the biggest one for me was just with Raffi and Picard's conversation. As Richard says, you know, JL, I love you. There's no need, you know, in a sense, or this idea that Jean-Luc and Raffi are saying I love you to one another. I think that could have been done in a way that was much more justified to Raffi's character, given she's been abandoned by Picard for over 14 years. And that, you know, she's gone through a really great journey with her own issues around being obsessed, effectively being a drug addict, obsessing about the Romulans to the extent where she has effectively lost her family. And in the end, it feels like that was never ever an issue. And I'm not saying that we need to see loads of things between her and Picard to make that up. I think you could see that there was an underlying respect of these 2 characters to one another. And gradually through the passage of time and working together in these situations, they were coming back together. But it just jarred that she wouldn't make the point despite everything. That's all it even needed in the writing. And it's a small thing. But
it was the line, wasn't it? Yeah. It was the line where she says, "You've done so much for me. I love you, JL." And you're going, I totally get the "I love you, JL." That's a lovely moment. She's saying, truly, she has emotional feelings for her former captain. She loves him for the person that he is. That's a great moment. But to say, for everything you've done for me, like leaving me abandoned for 14 years and not even contacting me, feels Like, did you even watch the first 9 episodes yourselves, the writers in the writers' room, you know? It felt weird. But we do have more feedback. I'm sure we have many more thoughts about the episode. So let's move on to some feedback from Cassie Mack. The problem with doing a pub quiz is we put out questions for all of our wonderful Trekkies and Trekkers. And Cassie Mack says, I have some questions for you guys.
Oh, no. The tables have turned.
Do it.
Cassie says, the imagination device that was given to Raffi, who helped Rios use it, and when La Sirena had power again, they left it on the bridge. Later, when Dr. Jurati and Picard board La Sirena, how does she know how to use it? How does unfamiliar with space travel, never been off-world, even know what was needed for the Picard maneuver? There seem to be a lot of little connecting bits that were cut for time. Most have been addressed by Michael Chabon on social media, but I haven't heard about this one. I hear people commend Chabon for being so publicly candid, but why wouldn't he be? He's done with this job, and his next one has locked down already. It was kind of refreshing. The be interview that saying anything spin gets old quickly. The only thing this is probably headcanon, maybe, for me, as to why Jurati would know how to use that device. Remember, she did work on the planet with Dr. Sung, working with him on the synths for a while, for a couple of days or something like that, maybe a little bit more. So maybe she got to use the tool while she was on the planet.
I think that was my working theory, was that because of her connection with Bruce Maddox, working on synths before the lockdown and the synth ban, I just assumed that it was a tool really used to do some of these intricate pieces of work on the mind transfers and so on within the synthetics, in the same way that that's why it used the imagination effectively.
Yeah.
So that all these details that Jurati talks about, you know, when she first sees Soji and realizes that actually she's synthetic, where she talks about her moles and, all that she gets hungry, she gets thirsty, that all those abilities to behave and feel biological are transferred in this way through this device in some way. And maybe she had some kind of knowledge about it through Bruce Maddox and also with working with Dr. Sung, with the synths on the synth homeworld. But, I think for sure it's one of those things, like you say, that's not really shown. And yet what is shown previously with this device is Rios going, how the hell do I use it? There's not even an on button. Okay, it's 2 different people, but if you're going to make that position where it's like, how the hell do you use this? You know, let's just take a leap of faith and they do it and it works. And then someone else just picks it up and uses it. It seems a little strange.
But she picks it up and she does describe it. She does know the name of it. So I think she did use the tool before. I think that's what's supposed to be there. But I think we can all agree that the imagination device is a bit of an odd idea anyway.
Yeah. So the way I took it is we saw her working on the Gollum piece. My assumption is there's a cut scene where she's using a similar type of device where she's transferring something in preparation. Do you remember there was a scene where she comes in to do something to the Gollum so she gets rid of Sung?
Yeah.
So that she can then run and grab Picard?
Yes, she gets the eyeball out of
yes,
Saga.
that was it.
And maybe that was the device that she used to get the eyeball out of Saga. Maybe that was it.
No, she pulled that out with her hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, there was a scene just prior to that where she was working in the Gollum room.
Yeah.
Or in the room, in a different room. But essentially she was working with their technology.
There you go.
And we do see that their technology is something like that because we see Soji doing it with her build-a-blocks on the kind of computer interface. Where she was building it and then it was building in real life.
Yes.
Headcanon / editing makes me think that probably was a scene.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, it's been really interesting seeing Michael Chabon talk about some of the things that go on in production. You know, not everything you write down makes it in a TV show or a movie. We totally understand that. So it's been interesting hearing some of the ideas that he had behind some of the things that did make it a screen and some things that were cut and some edits. At his Instagram account, he does a kind of a question time with fans after they watch the episodes each week. And it's been fascinating. But yeah, he's moved on. He's not going to be in season 2 of the show. It was always intended that he would be there for just season 1, and a new showrunner is coming in for season 2. So it'll be interesting to see what the new writers' room comes up with in Picard season 2. Hopefully no more imagination tools though.
Well, it's there now.
It's still on their ship for some reason.
It's reality.
Maybe somebody will steal it the next episode, just so it's off the table.
It's like, oh no, it fell off the table. Spank. Oh, it broke. Oh no, we can never use it again.
It's done. It's over. Cassie continues with another question. Picard comments to Seven about Hugh, something like, I wonder what would turn such a gentle soul to an act of such unspeakable violence. What does he think Hugh did? Kill the XBs himself? That's all I can imagine. And Seven wasn't there when they were killed, but how could either of them believe that of Hugh? Maybe that comment could have been cut too, since it was never paid off. That's a really interesting one, Cassie. I remember that moment when Picard said that to Seven, and I don't know why it didn't even cross my mind that that's what he was saying about Hugh, because there is no violence that Hugh commits in the show that we're aware of at all. In fact, he stands side by side with Narissa when she's pointing the gun at him and her men are pointing the gun at him, and they kill the XBs. So how would Picard possibly assume that Hugh did that? Especially because he knows about Narek and Narissa being aboard the Borg ship. So that does seem like a very odd line now that you've taken that out from the episode.
I am slack-jawed here.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my god. That is literally potentially some of the best proof that there was a missed storyline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that would suggest that Hugh didn't die when he died in the original.
Mm-hmm.
Or when he was dying, he was turning.
He was attempting to do something, yeah.
I must say,
maybe he turned on the Borg. So, if you imagine that he turned back on the Borg in order to try and save them, he did what Seven did, but couldn't control it. And ended up trying, because remember there was a scene where we saw the Borg in one of the trailers for coming next episode. There was scenes of the Borg ships and nanites turning on and fighting some of the Romulan ships.
Oh no, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, that was in one of the things. Okay. So I'm wondering if he turned it on and tried to destroy some of the things, couldn't get it done, then Seven turned it and it kind of went bad, and then Seven turned it on and did her whole connection and then like vented them all.
Yeah.
Or he vented them?
No, the venting was done by Narissa.
But imagine he vented them.
Yeah, but that's just not how it went down. So this is a really strange situation to have. I have to say, I can't fully remember that line in the episode, but I think it could just be this lack of communication. I mean, the only person there, like Elnor, was there with Hugh all the time, so he knows what happened. Elnor's been with Seven, so whether it's Elnor has communicated something, but we know that Hugh hasn't done anything like that. So,
and we know that Elnor speaks in absolute candor,
exactly.
So he definitely told the truth.
So it seems, as you say, Chris, it's this issue that seemed to happen with connecting things, and I think it comes to that point where I suppose again, for me, these last two episodes, I really liked part 2 of Et in Arcadia Ego, episode 10. But part 1 kind of just muddled it all because it just felt like a really speedy ending. And it seems like a lot of stuff was trying to be just articulated out to cover all this missed time that we'd had. I think it was like I was saying, it's almost like it needed to be 12 episodes to give some of that space for the run into the end, a bit more breath, so that you could spend some time on the synth world. You could understand Sutra. You could get some resolution on the attack on Mars, other than that throwaway line of, that the Chad Vash, after they had seen the vision that they were going to go to the human world of Mars in order to do the attack on Mars. It'd be better to have some more payoff for Raffi to see a bit of that, because it links into how the implications of effectively the Romulan incursion into Starfleet by Commander O, which was really just dealt with Will Riker quipping to her, well, what do we call you now? So again, with the attack on Mars, I'm like going, why do a 3-issue comic series running in, doing the short trek, which is really laying the foundation around that. And then you don't give just that view of how this was all built up, even if it was Commander O captured by Starfleet running through it, and you're getting little glimpses of how it was done. It feels really at odds, and I think, like with this comment, to be honest, from Picard, and it's not the only thing where Picard was a bit off in terms of what he was told to say. Like the moment where his aromatic syndrome means that he says "Welcome to the planet" and falls back, it just seemed out of place, because he hadn't done anything like that up till then.
Yeah. Well, but that was setting up something that was happening in episode 10. I can understand that a little bit more now. This scene just feels like, well, 7 of 9 is in the show. She knew Hugh. Picard and herself had talked about him before. And if you didn't have a moment of them saying, "Isn't it awful what happened to you?" then you would have missed a chance. And the only dialogue they had between the two of them was this line from a previously cut scene or a previously cut storyline that didn't make it to air. So I understand what you mean, Cassie, but I don't understand why this scene was in there. I don't understand what Picard could have been talking about in that scene. I do want to know what we might have missed in that discussion, but I think they just kept it in the edit because it would have been weird if Seven and Picard hadn't mentioned you when they met. And that's the only line they had. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other question? This is just actually leaded, and I'm going to actually put this out to all the industrialists. Why wears everyone gold? Bar Soji and Daj.
Soji and Daj are the most advanced versions of the synths that have ever been created. And their role was to go out and infiltrate and find out more information about the organics, because the last time they'd sent out ambassadors, they were killed by the organics that they met. So the mission of Daj and Soji was to find out whether they could be trusted effectively. That seems to have been what the story was. So they waited until they could make proper synths from blood and tissue to send them out in the galaxy to gather information to bring back to them. That seems to have been their mission.
Sure. It just seems, I just thought about it. It was just like, yeah, that seems slightly weird that they're all the rest of them are like gold hue. But Data's whole thing was that he wanted the skin and he wanted it to look normal and not be pale. So they went from pale. Do you know what? No. Do you know what's better than pale? Gold. Oh yeah. And you're like, well.
Yeah, I think we had said we just thought they were, version 1s. They were kind of still developments on Data, but not to the level of Daj and Soji, I think. But
maybe, yeah. Also,
just coming back to the comment from Picard that Cassie raises, I think I know where it is now, and in my mind, I felt Picard was talking about how Hugh had died in terms of bleeding out with the dagger. I thought it was more to do that, such a gentle soul to sort of perish in such an unspeakable, violent way.
Right.
I thought it was something like that. Again, a bit like with Derek, I need to rewatch that episode, but I thought that conversation between Picard and Seven was more about Hugh being such a gentle soul and effectively going out really violently at the hands of Narissa. I think, but I'm not entirely sure. Again, as I said, probably need to just rewatch that episode.
That makes much more sense now. Scrub everything that we've already said about this. That makes much more sense that's what Picard was saying was Hugh was such a gentle person. Why would he die in such a violent way? It's an awful way for him to go. Yeah, that makes much more sense.
Yep. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. Scrap everything myself and Derek have said for the last 10 minutes.
But we're not going to edit it out of the podcast. We were so intrigued by that piece of feedback from Cassie that we did go back and watch the episode. Here's what Picard actually says in the episode.
Poor Hugh. It must have taken appalling brutality to turn such a gentle soul to violence.
So Cassie was right, and now I'm even more confused about that line in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of doesn't make any sense, really.
Does it?
And I think, I just wonder if it's because Hugh, back in Next Generation, he is a very gentle soul. He maintains that aboard the Romulan reclamation cube here.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder whether he's meaning more generally that he had to fight for survival because he was being hunted down with Elnor by Narissa and the Romulans.
Yeah.
But in terms of what Picard is referring to, is it just simply that he was doing self-defense, or was it that he thinks that he's jettisoned all the XBs and Borg, or most of them, from the cube, which we know was Narissa giving the order?
Yeah, and Seven was the one that reactivated them before they were launched, so surely she said that to Picard as well. So.
Yeah, so it's
totally confused.
It's just a bit of a mystery, really, why that line is there, and actually just to what it refers. So yeah, good spot, Cass.
Absolutely, yeah. And as we said, if you have any thoughts about the scene, email us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, because are we missing something? And I don't think we are. Anyway, just wanted to do that for clarity. Back to Cassie's feedback at the podcast. Cassie finishes off saying, there were a bunch more questions and comments I wanted to send, but time got away from me in all the craziness, and you're in the future, so I'd better hit send before you get to Wednesday evening. But first, be safe, wash your hands, don't lick the podcast, look out for each other and yourselves, and we'll all get through this together.
Thank you so much, Cassie. But you can lick the podcasters as much as you want. Well, actually, you can lick your phone or whichever device our dulcet tones are coming out of, because... well, it's not going to touch us, but I recommend not licking the electronics.
No,
do not lick anything.
No, don't lick anything. No. Thank you so much, Cassie, for the feedback. It's really good to get those thoughts and to get the questions. As you can see, we spent a lot of time answering questions.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's just us posing questions to each other. And it's just like, would you rather?
Our final piece of feedback came in from Steve Brown on voicemail.
Hey guys, it's Steve. This is for your season 1 Picard kind of wrap up. I know I didn't send voicemails in for the last couple of episodes just because they weren't really my favorites. There was a lot of things. It felt to me like they rushed them. I don't know if maybe when they were producing these or in post-production, that was when all this virus stuff came up or what, I'm not sure. But it just felt like there was a lot of things that were skipped and rushed and that we missed out on as viewers. And that disappointed me quite a bit, those last 2 episodes. And, but I am intrigued for season 2. I like the fact that we ended on this very bright note with Picard and all the crew there, and it looked like 7 of 9 was even a member of the crew. They all had Starfleet badges. They all were in uniform. So it looked like next year, or next season, whenever that happens, are they going to change the name to, Star Trek La Sorrenta, or keep it Star Trek Picard? Probably keep it Star Trek Picard. But anyway, I like the way it ended. I just wasn't pleased with the way they did these last 2 episodes. So, I know that's not a popular opinion, but it's mine. So, I can't wait to hear what you guys do next. If I'm, involved in it, if it's a show that I pick up on and intrigued by, of course, I'll chime in. Thanks. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Steve. He also sent a follow-on email, said he must have completely misunderstood the last scene. I thought they were all in Starfleet uniforms with comm badges. But I guess they were not, from what I've been told. I guess I need to rewatch the last 3 episodes. It still sets up well for season 2 if this crew is staying together. Thanks so much, Steve. Yeah, I think they just all had the La Sirena communication badges on them, which I think might have caused the confusion for you. It's great to see the crew together at the end of the show. I'm not really too sure where they're going, because it doesn't seem to have set up why they would all be on the ship together, going off somewhere, other than, aim for the star and straight on till morning, isn't that the Peter Pan quote?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Going back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
There's a crop of grapes to get in.
Exactly. We're off to Chateau Picard to take care and take in this year's harvest, basically. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for the feedback. I must say, I know we don't know where they're going, but I liked the image, and for the final frame of Star Trek Picard, for him to be saying engage, being on the bridge, La Sirena with all the people he's been involved in this adventure. I thought was a really great end. And I'm with you, and we've talked about it with respect to Richards and Cassie's. Yeah, it felt rushed. These last 2 episodes of the series for sure. It felt something a little just off about them, maybe in terms of how they were or what they were expecting to do with the episodes. But I think there's some really, I don't want to be too down, because I think there's some really great stuff in these last 2 episodes as well, which on their own, I think is massive for Star Trek. One of the things which I've mentioned already is just, I think, Picard becoming a synth, going into that golem is a great, ballsy move by the writers and this production team. I really, really enjoyed it. And I will never forget Picard and Data having their final conversation. It's just so emotional. So there's some really awesome points in there, and I think just the death of Picard and the outpouring of grief from Raffi and Elnor, as well as with Rios and Seven of Nine, in very different ways, because they know the character in different ways, I thought was really nicely done. And I think for me, the Raffi Elnor one where they're just crying really hit me. And I think that's also because they're the 2 people that Picard pulls out to talk to in that moment, just before he dies. So there are some really great moments in part 2, I have to say. And I think in some ways they do, for me, overshadow the negatives around not fully explaining the attack on Mars. Where was Narek? Even though I think, when you step back and have the week to digest it, as we have done, you do go, yeah, that needed to be done better, for sure. But thanks for the feedback.
Yes, Steve, thank you so much for your feedback. I'm with the guys on this, and I'm actually with you as well, which is that it feels rushed. We've discussed a lot of these points already. I think the core thing is that, like all of us, we're kind of still excited for season 2 to see where it goes.
Exactly.
I think that's the kind of core thing. Is like they were allowed a misstep. They're allowed this, as long as, in my opinion, again, this is all our opinions, as long as it starts to pay off in season 2. In that, if this same thing that starts to happen towards the end of season 1 happens straight away from the beginning of season 2, I will not be happy if there are these additional threats. But they also get a bit of a do-over, because the stage is set. The scene is dressed now. They have literally kicking off season 2 with a fully realized crew, a ship, and they get to boldly go where no man, woman, or alien has gone before. That being said, Mark Bernardin is one of the writers on season 2. Yeah. He's one of the best TV writers at the moment, in my opinion. I like his opinions and I like what he's done on a lot of, like, Treadstone and Castle Rock. His episodes were quite good for those 2 shows. The other staff writers there as well are well known, and they're known for what they do well. And all of them have publicly said how much of a Star Trek fan they are and can talk about it. We've got a good foundation for season 2. I think that's the core thing.
It's interesting, actually, Chris, you saying, and I hope that it pays off in season 2, because the interesting thing about this season 1 is that I feel that it could have wrapped up. And I think Star Trek is something where they could be going off on a different adventure, and maybe this is still mulling away in the background, a bit like how they tackled Discovery, I suppose. Like in Discovery, where you have the mirror universe, and then in season 2 they really do go off in a different way, because they've kind of ended that. So it's interesting you say that, Chris, because I'm just like going, I wonder what they will do. Are they going to continue this thread into season 2, where it really does connect with season 1, or will they go off in a different way for a different purpose? But it may connect them back in with these higher synthetics that were the big threat. I suppose, in a sense, how connected will these 2 seasons be? It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, all the cast that we have at the end of the episode are going to be there at the start of next season. That's what I'm hoping for.
Absolutely.
That's the big
yeah, definitely. I hope so.
The one terrible thing I will say is it's awful to be going into the second season hoping that they're not going to end it the way they ended season 1. That's an awful feeling to have, because I really did enjoy season 1. Most of it. Like, there's only a couple of particular gripes I have about it. And unfortunately, Chris, you're never going to know if they're setting up threads that they aren't going to end until the end of the season. So that sucks as well. You know, you're not going to know how they're going to treat the show until the full season is out there. So all we can really do is hope they treat the characters well and give better stories to all of them next season. I think they've set them up quite well. They don't have to do that setup in season 2, so that hopefully gives them a bit more parameters. I often think when you look back on shows you've watched over the years, it's very rare that you say the first season of the show is the one that people should check out of a show you love. You know, it's season 3 of Next Generation is what everybody says. If you want to watch Star Trek Next Generation, watch from season 3 onwards. You don't need to see the first 2 seasons. That's 44 episodes of a show that people don't recommend to you. And then they try to compare it with 10 episodes of season 1 of Picard, you know? So I understand. Game of Thrones. I love season 1 of Game of Thrones, but it's got no budget, and they avoid every battle throughout season 1 of Game of Thrones. So you want people to watch it just so they get the storyline and then move into season 2 and season 3 kind of thing. But that's almost every show I can think of off the top of my head has always had a better second and third season. So hopefully, this misstep at the end of season 1 will be fixed. Whoever caused it, whatever it was caused by, hopefully it'll be sorted. Because one thing I did notice from the podcasts and from the reviews that I saw, a lot of people talking about how disappointed they were at the end of Picard. There was a lot of nitpicking about tiny little things that really didn't have a problem overall for me on the show. And I think that's just because most people, including myself, can't put their finger on what it is they didn't like at the end of the season. Everybody just knows there's something wrong, but nobody knows why. And I don't think we'll ever know why it went wrong at the end of the season.
I think we will. I think time. I think potentially it's going to be that kind of rumor that gets out that it will, because unfortunately a lot of shows right now are on hiatus from filming. That hiatus can only last so long because a lot of stars, a lot of the actors and so things may have had, especially Sir Patrick Stewart, may have additional things in the background. Like, so he may have had 6 months to film season 2, for example. And then he was he was already scheduled to film another 6 months of a film, or 8 months for a film or something like that. This additional knock-ons can potentially, it's like the SAG writers strike. It did lead to the death of some shows. I don't see this happening with this, but I can see it. Well, essentially, that's also what happened during that screenwriters, when things started dying and things started happening like that. We started getting like what happened during Angel, like the what happened really between the scenes in Angel, and all these types of backstabbing because I'm never going to have to get to work on the show again. Well, here's the real truth. Some of that rumor mill will happen, I think.
I think there is a very different situation that we're in now, especially during that writer's strike. They started pulling out episodes of shows that were written 5 or 6 years beforehand and just produced them because they could, effectively. Whereas now,
we own the script.
Everybody's out of production now. Everybody. So hopefully what that means, and this is, I think we were talking about this the other day, hopefully that means that people who have got scripts that are in production and production isn't happening on them, hopefully those scriptwriters take those scripts back and give them another pass so they don't have problems like this where they didn't have time and had to rush the writing on episodes. Hey, there you go. There is some positivity, I guess, then from COVID-19. Maybe some scriptwriters who were previously under a lot of time pressure to deliver scripts very fast and had to do some kind of sidestepping or miss some points. Maybe they'll have an opportunity to rewrite episodes to make them even better.
Yes, hopefully so.
That's it for the feedback that we've got. Any other thoughts about season 1 of Star Trek Picard overall? John, you had a few thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just bringing it back maybe to a more positive element, because overall, I really actually like this show. And all my quibbles, most of them are minor. And I have to say, Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard being back on screen, what a tour de force. I loved how they used his character, now the older version of Jean-Luc Picard. There was so many emotions here for me. Just seeing his performance was great. I loved that kind of, that grandeur that he brings to it, to this operatic in space, him connecting in with Will Riker, Deanna Troi, and seeing that nostalgia. And I mean that in a good way, but just having, that connection back with those two on their new home planet was really nicely done, and having Will Riker turn up to save the day. So, normally I'm a bit down about nostalgia because I think it can be bad, but I think here what I mean by, rather than nostalgia, they really captured the essence of the next generation with those returning characters. And I think they really try to imbue the new characters with that as well, but giving them a bit more of an up-to-date modern twist now, because things have changed, things have moved on. And in that sense, I loved Raffi and Elnor, and Elinor is my new Huey. And it was great to see Hugh back in, seeing Seven of Nine. I thought that was really nice. And I think the other big thing for me was I loved the fact that this connected us in with the Romulans, and I loved getting a bit more of the Romulan, lore effectively, around the Chad Vash, the Destroyer of Worlds, the Sheb Ganeb. All of that was fascinating for me. I really like it when they delve into these, the species that they've created on the show, like with the Klingons, like with the Vulcans, and so on. And having the Borg there as well. What an iconic, two iconic bad guys from the Next Generation in the Romulans and the Borg. And whilst, yes, they may have been underutilized, it was great having them there, the Borg. It was great having as well Laris and Shaban as well, the former Romulans, Tal Shiar as well, with Picard at his chateau. It's a shame they didn't go into space with him, but again, it was a nice connectivity to the earlier sort of setup comics that had been released. So really, really liked that as well. So
two great characters.
Yeah, really. A lot of this though hinged on Patrick Stewart, and again, he just showed his acting chops here. I loved his and Raffi's relationship. I think just really nice. Raffi is a great new character that I can't wait to see more of as well. And I think some of the different things as well. I like the fact that La Sirena did have a kind of a Mass Effect vibe. It didn't feel necessarily of the Star Trek world, but it certainly didn't seem out of place. It was a spaceship, and I liked its design, and I liked that Mass Effect aesthetic to it.
It's a spaceship, and 15 years on from the last spaceship.
Yeah, exactly,
as well, so,
exactly. Yeah. And of course, whilst arguably one of the most divisive parts of this series, I loved the Flower Power planetary defense system. We come to stop you acting in war by coming in peace. What a great idea. And I think
with flowers that drag you to our planet.
Yes. Exactly.
To your death.
Potentially to your death, or, we stop you attacking by hugging you with flowers. I just thought it was something different.
Yeah.
I thought it was something kind of visually, it looked amazing. Yeah. For sure. And I think, as you said, Chris, on our episode 10 discussion of Star Trek Picard, it's one of the things that you kind of feel that Star Trek can do. I think if suddenly in Star Wars there were flowery planetary defenses, that might look or feel certainly out of place, but this for some reason didn't. And just having the connectivity with Data as well, through Soji and Darj to Picard, and that connection with Insurrection, Star Trek Insurrection is phenomenally good. And so yeah, it really, I just wanted to kind of just quickly signpost those bits that I really loved of this series.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. There's a lot of great stuff happening in this series. I think part of the challenge at the end of the series is most of my issues, I'll say, or most of the things I didn't like happened in the last 2 episodes, but so much that I did like happened over the first 8 weeks. So I really had some great moments in this series that will stand out, and I'll definitely go back and watch the full series again in the future. It's just a shame that things that I don't like happened at the end, because that's the bit that leaves the bad feeling in your mouth. If things that I didn't like happened in episode 2, it'd be grand. I'd have forgotten about them by now.
So, Derek, I'm going to ask you to take Star Trek out of your mouth and stop putting it in your mouth in the first place. It should be watched with the eyes, not
social
with the
distance yourself from Star Trek. I like it.
Yes. No, just don't lick it. You don't need to put it in.
But maybe by the time it gets to season 2, all of this will be completely forgotten over the end of season 1. But I am looking forward to season 2. Chris, any thoughts about Star Trek Picard season 1?
Yeah, I think you guys have completed everything and we've discussed them. We're all on the same page. I think the best analogy for me is this is fantastic gymnastics performance in the Olympics. It's top class. It's literally some of the best in this field. It's an amazing performance that you're just like, this is great. You're watching it. You're wowing. It's just at the very end, she just drops her foot. And she's doing the performance and she lands in a weird way and the leg goes out of the back and she's like wobbling a tiny bit after doing a big triple backflip spin in the air. And you're like, I can never do this. Oh, she stuck the landing, but just kind of missed it at the end. I think that's it. Like, we saw some great backflips, we saw some great spins, some amazing ribbon work. It's just that landing at the end. It was just, yeah. So,
was there good ball work?
There's always good ball work.
Excellent
there really
stuff.
is. Like, it's the ribbon and balls, actually. And then it's just that triple flip with the ribbon and the balls and the juggling midway through. But yeah, I think that ending just left a weird taste in my mouth, and it soured it slightly. Mm-hmm. So I think overall, I enjoyed it. Overall, I want to see what they're going to do in season 2. I want to know how they're going to portray some of these stories. Mm-hmm. So, Raffi and Seven holding hands. Is that just friendship? Is that potentially more? Is there something they're setting up? Is Jurati going to pay for her crimes? She literally killed a man.
See, that was one that I only noticed when I was writing out the synopsis for season 1. I wrote out all the detail that happened in season 1, and it's very likely intimated that forcing of Jurati to see the admonition also implanted in her to kill Bruce Maddox. It was implanted in her to murder Bruce Maddox, and by her saving Picard, that she's gone through a redemptive arc towards the end of the season. But there was no investigation done on it, as you say, and they didn't really treat her as one of the crew. They needed her help a lot, so they kept her along with them because they needed her help. But she hasn't actually paid for murdering someone other than within her own mind. She's freaking out a lot over the last couple of episodes that she killed her former lover, but she hasn't been actually released from the possibility that she murdered somebody or anything like that. So I think that hopefully will come back in season 2. I absolutely hope that we see more of Seven and Raffi together. They're definitely 2 of my favorite characters in the season. I hope they're in a relationship. I hate that I have to ask that question. I hate that it is a question. Why is it a question? Why couldn't you have them kissing each other and everybody goes, oh, I wonder if their relationship will continue into season 2. Why are we asking the question whether they are in a relationship or not? It's supposed to be intended that they are by the end of the season. But make it more obvious, because I hate the conversation that has to happen. These should be representative of 2 bisexual people. Yeah, okay, they had relationships with men before, but they're now having a relationship with each other because they like each other. Oh no, how awful is that to be able to say in a TV show? We're in 2020, for God's sake. So I hate that question is out there. It should be clearer, and hopefully it will be in season 2.
Exactly. It's like Elnor and Rios. I just wish they would make it clearer that they were sort of together in a relationship.
Elnor and Hugh were definitely setting up to be together, without a doubt. Although Elnor seems to be very attracted to Seven as well. So
Elnor's basically got the mind of a child. Let's remember this. Yeah. Like, everything's new to him. Absolutely. So it's just taking all that step back. It's going to be interesting where they go with season 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
literally. Will we, at the end of season 2, go, do you know what? All of that paid off. They actually took what we wanted and they took the threads through, or we will literally turn around and go, do you know what? They dropped everything from season 1, started afresh, gave us what we wanted, and actually they turned the ship around. We don't know. I'm interested to see where we will boldly go, where no show has gone before. Well, actually, every show has gone before, because it's a recurring series.
Yes.
But let's see.
One final thing we didn't mention that Steve had kind of intimated on his voicemail. He was wondering whether the coronavirus may have affected this final 2 episodes. I know it didn't, and the only reason I know for a fact that it didn't was all of the Ready Room episodes, those interviews episodes that Will Wheaton did with the cast, they were all recorded months ago because they're all in the same room together and they wouldn't be able to do that now. So this show was absolutely completed probably around February, January of this year. So they may use that as an excuse sometime in the future, but that was definitely no involvement with the coronavirus. I think the show actually completed filming quite a long time ago as well. So no impact from the coronavirus. No.
The only impact is probably if they do a rerun in the next couple of weeks, they might get some extra viewing numbers for it.
Exactly. But it's available now on Amazon Prime, and it's free on CBS.
They made it
Access,
free,
so,
yes.
Yeah. So everybody can watch it now. Time to get your drinks ready and get over for a bit of social activity in 10 Forward with our pub quiz, the finale. All questions answered, all winners revealed.
Yes, indeed. Welcome, fellow Trekkers and Trekkies and pub quizzes to 10 Forward. Pull up a Romulan ale, get yourself a Earthbound gin and tonic or beer, maybe even a tipple of deep, dark, chocolatey red wine from a French vineyard somewhere, maybe like a Chateau Picard 86. That's a spoiler for one of the questions, by the way. But let's get into the 10 Forward pub quiz. Thank you so much to everyone who has been sending in your answers. It's been really good to get all the answers through. It is certainly a very, very, very close call at the top. Dare I say it, I will announce the results of the top 3. In a sense, we are kind of replacing the Olympics for this year here with the podium of bronze, silver, gold for the top 3, but it is massively close call. But I think a rundown through the questions with their answers. So, question 1. What common piece of jewellery is featured in the episode and what does it represent? The piece of jewellery is a necklace, and the 2 interlocking circles on the necklace represents fractal neuronic cloning. It also looks like the Omega symbol, which is for infinity, which is kind of how they're able to get and use the little piece of data that survived to create Soji and Daj. So, yes, it is. They are the 2 points here: necklace and fractal neuronic cloning.
That's an unusual necklace. May I see?
My father gave it to me.
It's a symbol for fractal neuronic cloning.
I'm sorry.
It's a radical, beautiful idea of Maddox's. His theory was that Data's entire code, even his memories, could be reconstituted from a single positronic neuron.
Good stuff.
Straight from their mouths.
Exactly.
That's the actual answer for that.
To your ears.
Yes. Question 2. How many days has the Romulan reclamation site gone without assimilation? The Romulan reclamation site has gone 5,843 days without assimilation.
I loved it when we did the episodes. They hadn't been released when we did these couple of episodes, the first podcasts for them. And I think almost immediately after that sign was on the wall, it was up for sale on Amazon and on Etsy and that kind of stuff, where this number of days from last assimilation was up there. So this became one of those images from the episode that was shared everywhere. And we just watched the episode and thought, this will be a really good trivia question. But everybody got it right.
Question 3. What year is the Chateau Picard vintage drank by Raffi and Picard as they dredge up the past? It is an 86 vintage of Chateau Picard. Dare I say it, a 2386 vintage.
Ooh.
So a controversial answer for this one, because the actual conversation that they have was at the end of episode 2. At episode 3 had them drinking the 2386, but I think we can give it to everybody that got that right, because it was a
Absolutely.
It was a nice little nod.
As controversies go, I don't think it's that controversial.
Yeah.
It is possibly slightly more tricky to deal with. Yes.
Yeah, but a nice little reference as well. We if you work out the years, the 14 years beforehand when Picard retired from Starfleet, was 2385. So this would have been the first crop that he would have gotten, the first harvest that he would have gotten from Chateau Picard after he retired. So that's why it's a special vintage. So a nice little 86 reference in there.
Exactly. Okay, on to question 4. What book did Picard give to Elnor on his trip to Vashti 14 years previously? Picard gives Elnor The Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas. En garde.
What did you bring me?
What did I bring you? Well, now let me see. The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Enjoy.
It sounded like Father Christmas in that, didn't he? I think.
Oh yes, what do I have?
With his sack, giving the children presents. Yes. On to question 5 with that. This is a 4-pointer. What are the number of domes on planet Vergessen? How many are in the Conclave? How many umbrellas are in Rios's Temtibi Lagoon cocktail? And how many feathers are in Rios's hat? There are 7 domes on planet Vergessen. The Conclave is made up of 8. There are 2 cocktail umbrellas in Rios's cocktail. And Rios's swanky hat has 2 feathers.
Ooh.
A red and a greeny blue feather.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
This is what made the top 3 very close, this question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on to question 6. How many pieces make up each side of Narek's Romulan Rubik's Cube of death? Now, this even stumped those that were asking the question. So there are a number of different answers that we accepted for this. But in the main, I was looking for the 9 pieces that made up each side of Narek's Romulan Rubik's Cube. If you said 54 pieces in total, minus the edging pieces, that was also accepted. And also, if you included those edging pieces, then it was 17 pieces that make up each side of Narek's Romulan Rubik's Cube. So all 9, 17, or 54, if you were giving it for the whole Rubik's Cube, with 9 pieces each side, they were all accepted. Right. But the consensus was 9. We did have one person who had also taken on the edging pieces, and so we said, well, that's a valid point to take. Mm-hmm. So yes, a difficult one for us. I'm never going to do a geometry-based pub quiz question ever again. Never, ever again.
If it doesn't come out in dialogue, there's no point in doing it. So at least you have the subtitles to give you the answer. So.
Exactly, and certainly not for something as elaborate as the Romulan Rubik's Cube
It's
of
got loads
death.
of moving pieces as well. Like the top flips open at a point in the episode as well. So yeah,
exactly. But nonetheless, it was a good call by all the entrants. So really good. Question 7. What 3 ingredients were on the pizza that Will Riker cooked on Nepenthe? The 3 ingredients are Antarian basil, tomatoes, and bunny corn sausage, non-venomous and fresh.
You can lie down in Thad's room and rest while Will makes us dinner.
Pizza in the wood-fired oven, tomato and basil from our garden, and non-venomous bunny corn sausage.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Now for question 8. How many holograms meet with Raffi? What are their functions? And what are the names of the 3 we know? The reason why it's 3 and not 4 is because at this stage when we wrote the question, we only knew of 3, but a 4th name is brought to light later on in the series.
We should have guessed that was going to happen, shouldn't we?
Of course. But how many holograms met with Raffi? It was 5. Their functions were emergency medical, emergency hospitality, emergency navigational, emergency engineering, and the emergency tactical hologram. The names for the emergency tactical hologram was Emmett. He was the one with the Spanish accent. There was Enoch, that was the emergency navigational hologram, who had the Irish accent. And then there was the emergency engineering hologram, who was Ian with the Scottish accent. The fourth one that came to light after episode 8 was Emile, which was the emergency medical hologram. So with an English accent. So, of course, we did have a Scotsman, Irishman, and an Englishman joke possibly to hand.
So close. Yeah.
But so close, yet so far. That was a 3-pointer.
Yeah, and lots of people pointed out, how do you spell Ian with an E? Since everybody spells Ian with an I, or 2 I's even in the name. So, some people spelling it Owen, but we did accept it because that can be pronounced Ian, but the character's name was Ian in the show.
Yes. Question 9. How many Romulan ships are heading to Coppelius to destroy the synth world? And how many giant bogey flowers do the synths send up to intercept La Sirena, the Borg Cube, and Narek's snakehead Romulan fighter? It is 218 Romulan warbirds, and 5 of these beautiful orchid flowers are sent up to lovingly intercept the 3 ships.
Embrace them.
Yes.
Embrace them with a hug.
Oh, man.
How many?
218 warbirds.
Oh, 218. That's not so bad.
True. You really only have to worry about the first 109.
And finally, fellow pub quizzers, what does Dr. Jurati call the device that Rios used to fix La Sirena and Picard uses to pull off the updated Picard maneuver? Let us leave that to Dr. Jurati herself.
How the hell would we do that? If only we had some kind of wacky fundamental field replicator with a neurocatomic interface.
So we, like most of our listeners, did rely on the subtitles for the answer to that as well, just to make sure that we had it absolutely right.
Yes, exactly. The magical mystery spanner that Dr. Jurati and Rios use is in fact a wacky fundamental field replicator with a neuroatomic interface.
Mm-hmm.
Say that faster, 3 times.
No.
Okay. It was worth a try.
It was worth a try. I am not good at doing that.
A wacky fundamental field replicator with a neuroatomic interface, or a wacky fundamental field replicator with a neuroatomic interface,
Yeah.
or a wacky fundamental field replicator with a... Damn it, I lost it.
I am not that great with tongue twisters, but thank you so much, fellow pub quizzes, for all the answers that you sent in and for all those that took part. I'm going to give you the top 3 here now. So actually, second and third is a tie between Bob Phillips and Will Walton, who both got 16 out of 17 correct. Unfortunately, the one that they fell down on were the number of feathers in Rios's hat. They indicated that there was 1 feather instead of the 2 plumages that came from the hat.
That's right. I had to go back and actually watch the episode again because I was questioning myself when I saw quite a few people come in with just 1 feather. But I think it's in dialogue they say your hat needs a feather, but when you see him on the planet, he's wearing 2 feathers in his hat.
Yes, and drum roll, national anthem prepared, get the flag going. It is for the winner of the 10 Forward pub quiz is Cassie Mack with 16 and a half out of 17.
Ooh, that is close.
Yes. It was at the loss of half a point was on a technicality. I am a harsh mistress. Because actually Cassie did get all the ingredients right for Will Riker's pizza, except did not specify that it was Anterian basil.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's probably because he says the anterior basil a little bit later in the episode.
Exactly. That's the reasoning.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. But we did specify it because in the episode it was very clear what each ingredient was, and it would have been quite simple for just basil and tomato.
But nonetheless, 16 and a half is a great score. In fact, the top three are so close. It was really great scoring these, because I was just like, oh my goodness, okay, this is really close. It was close with all the others as well. So thank you so much for everyone who participated again. I love doing these pub quizzes. I just think we should maybe do it all together with booze in hand, like a real pub. Absolutely. And maybe when COVID-19 is over, we'll hire a pub somewhere and we'll run a TV podcast industries pub quiz, I don't know, next to some kind of fan fest or something. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Things will return to normal at some point. Congratulations, Cassie. And yeah, thanks so much for all of the entries from everybody that's been entering the pub quiz. It's always great fun to have a little trivia moment at the end of each episode, and it's turned into pub quiz trivia as we've gone on over the years. So I like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, Cassie.
Yeah, congratulations again, Cassie, and to everyone involved. Great stuff.
So the prizes that we had up for grabs as part of the pub quiz was, of course, the Star Trek Picard Federation badge that none other than Derek got himself at the European premiere, a Picard beer stein, and an official behind-the-scenes book. We'll be in contact with Cassie to organise everything. Of course, restrictions being what they are, it may take a bit longer than usual, but fear not, they will be winging their way through postal services. Unfortunately, we do not have transporter technology or those really cool transporter doors, remember?
Yeah.
From like the first episode?
That was awesome, yeah.
That was cool.
That was really cool. I'd love to be able to just pop the goodies into one of those doors and have them arrive at Cassie's doorstep. But we will have to wait until normal service resumes. But they'll be there for you, don't you worry. And thanks so much again, Cassie, and everybody else for getting involved. Hopefully we'll have another pub quiz round when it gets round to Penny Dreadful. Maybe it'll be the Buckets of Blood pub quiz, or
it might have to be something from a horror pub, like something like the Slaughtered Lamb from the American Werewolf in London.
Nice.
Or the Monsters Mash.
Yes.
That could be
we
good.
could take an alien type one, like the Green Man or something like that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I'm sure we can have it.
I'm sure we can think
or maybe
of
The
one.
World's End.
What do you think, fellow industrialists? Let us know on the back of a postcard. Well, actually, probably on Facebook, over on facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, or over on Twitter at TV Pod Industries.
Yep. Or as always, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. That's it. That's all of our discussions about Star Trek Picard for 2020. I presume we're not going to be talking about it again until season 2 is coming back. Hopefully next year. We'll see how that goes. Thank you so much for joining us for the last 11 weeks for Star Trek Picard. We hope you'll stay with us for Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, and for our recap and rewatch episodes of Penny Dreadful, which are being released now on our main feed on TV Podcast Industries. If you want to get those episodes actually individually, you can go over to dreadfulpodcast.com and put them out as individual episodes for all 28 episodes of Penny Dreadful, seasons 1 to 3. Or you can go and support us over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. Throw us a couple of bucks and you can get access to all of the podcasts for Penny Dreadful that we're releasing over there as well.
Yes, help us keep the lights on and the podcast mics powered. A little goes a long way, but obviously any help helps.
And yeah, absolutely huge thank you to everybody that supports us over at Patreon. It's been wonderful to have the support over the last couple of months. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. It has been great talking everything to do with Star Trek. Certainly this lovely, soft, gooey Picard that we've all enjoyed watching back on the screens. What a ride that was. As always, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, discussing everything to do with Star Trek Picard and getting connected in with the podcast and Trek community. Yeah, we'll see you for the Dreadful Podcast Part 4 when we cover City of Angels. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and engage.
Bye.
I'm doing the live long and prosper. You just can't see.
I thought you were trying to count
radio.
down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye.